Are you dreading your next home repair? Don't. Crew Pros is your one-call solution for everything your home needs. Whether it's heating and air, plumbing, complete roof replacement, whole home generators, and electrical repairs. Our professionals get the job done right. Crew Pros is your single source for high-quality home services at affordable prices. For everything your home needs, Crew Pros. Remodel, repair, replace.
Memphis. Nothing but Memphis. Everywhere we go, it's Memphis. Memphis, Tennessee, the beautiful land in the world.
And I'm thankful for this guy who tweeted and said I don't have that fire in my eyes no more. That game right there was for him. That's what I do. I prove people wrong each and every night, and that's for him right there.
Hi, this is Tom Izzo at Michigan State, and you're listening to Grizz 901.
What up, Grizz Nation, and welcome back to another episode of Grizz 901. We are presented by the good people over at Zach Jaworski State Farm, where they treat you like family. We have a fun-filled night headed for you. We're going to talk a little bit about playoff reseeding. And so we've obviously heard a lot about, a lot of it was made from Kevin O'Connor, where he's talking about where you can be a playoff team and pick the team of your choosing. So Nate and I are going to pick our teams tonight in playoff reseeding. And then we're going to go and join in our friend on the playoff lessons. He wrote an article. It's Shawn Coleman of Bluff City Media. He's going to join us about the 8:15 mark. He'll be here. And then the last part is going to be probably our most fun because nothing with Shawn Coleman is fun. So we're going to end it with social media shenanigans. And that's going to be all the stupid trades that you've seen. And we're going to make sure that we see them here tonight. But also, we're going to talk a little bit more about some other stuff that people are saying in the streets, the Twitter streets. But you know who we got to bring in. What's Nate?
up?
What up, Nate?
I don't know if that music's weird on your end. It's super weird on my end. I hate it. But
I don't get it why it's still going.
I want you to know I'm super duper prepped for tonight. I'm prepped for the things I want to be prepped for. I guess that's the way to describe it. But yeah, there's more than just stupid trades on social media, and there's some positive social media this week. So I'm excited.
No way. You're kidding.
Depends on what you mean by positive. To me, it's positive because I'm toxic and petty. So it'll be fun.
All right, well, make sure you hang out with us. We're going to welcome in Shawn Coleman here in about 10 or 15 minutes, depending on when he can come over here. But he did write a very good article, and it was pretty much aligning with what we were saying on maybe playoff lessons, things we could learn from the last four teams. And so he wrote a very good article about that. It's over at, you can find it over at, the Grizzly Bear Blues, but it's over at BCM Grizzlies. And so check that out. Make sure anywhere, if you're listening to us, you probably know who Shawn Coleman is, but if you don't, you're going to get to know him tonight. He will come in guns a-blazing. I guarantee that. Like that's a guarantee. All right, before we let's go ahead and get into a little bit of the show. But if you would join us over at Bluff City Media, you can be an insider. Just go over there and use code Grizz901. It'll save you 10% off on a yearly membership. So go ahead and do that. I'm putting out a lot of plays. If you don't follow us at Bluff City Bets, I just cashed on a plus 500 from Josh Jung to hit a bomb. It's Dinger Tuesday, so I'm going to cash on his. But I'm also going to cash on every single person that hits a home run in the Texas Rangers game. And so there's already been, I believe, now 2. So free money. But our show is coming out Thursday for Bluff City Bets. And so make sure you tune in there. We're going to have some new things we're going to show. All right. Holy broomsticks. Let's go into some playoff reseedings. It's going to be our fun part. The playoffs happen. Obviously, it's been known that the new thing about that they could do is the reseeding of the playoffs. You get to be the best team. You get to pick who you want to play in the playoffs. You don't have the first pick. That's the Denver Nuggets. Who's the Denver Nuggets going to pick?
This team they played, the Wolves. They took care of business there. I don't know, maybe the Lakers. I don't know the way it's looking now. But no, they're taking the Wolves. The Wolves are always a team that you wanted to play in the first round.
All right, so no matter what, They're taking the Minnesota Timberwolves, and shout out Chris over in the comment section. All right, I agree with you. All right, so we're 1-for-1 there. I think you have to take the Timberwolves. All right, so the Grizzlies are on the clock. They obviously have Steven Adams hurt. They have Brandon Clark out for the season. They also are trying to integrate in Luke Kennard, and they pull first round. Who would you pick? Because they took the Lakers, right? So who else would you go after?
We're doing what we know now, right?
Well, okay, so the rules are, I believe, you can't choose like 3 and 4. So 1 through 4 aren't eligible. It has to be 5th through 8. Right. And so we're going to use that through us. So you couldn't choose the Kings or the who's it? The Warriors 4?
Warriors were 6. It was the Suns.
4. Suns. Couldn't choose Suns.
So, but I'm saying, am I picking based off what I know right now, or am I picking based off going into the playoffs?
Going into the playoffs, because you did not know that Kawhi was going to be hurt. You did know that Paul George was going to be out.
You knew exactly where I was going.
Yep.
I think I still would have picked the Clippers. In all honesty, I think just Kawhi, the Grizzlies would have liked their chances there. It's either that or the Warriors. I don't think they're picking the Lakers.
I think the Lakers would have been the last pick, just because they don't match up well with Anthony Davis.
Exactly.
I really do think we're on the same boat there, and that makes for terrible content.
It is what it is.
But okay, so let's say they do take the Clippers and the same things happen.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think they can still get out of that series? Even though we have the injuries, they now have their same injuries. Obviously, Kawhi looked like $1 million, but once he was out, they kind of looked, just distraught.
Yeah, and the way the Grizzlies work, if they can get you down to just one player having to do everything, that's advantage to the Grizzlies. If, it's the same thing that what happened last year against the Warriors happened this year against the Lakers. It was the other guys. It was Austin Reeves and Rui Hachimura that were just murdering you. Yeah. D'Lo, the one game, had that hot stretch. And so the Clippers had pretty much just Kawhi. You saw what happened once he went out. I think they would have pulled it out. And obviously once Kawhi got hurt, I think that was curtains. So I think the Grizzlies would have won. Especially if Kawhi got hurt again.
Let's get to the next matchup then. So you're going to have obviously the 3 seed, which is the Kings. You think the Kings repick the Warriors again? Because it's the Warriors or the Lakers.
I don't know. I think they would have picked the Lakers.
Why? Because
they would have thought they had the offensive firepower to just bury the Lakers, in my opinion. If we're talking about what they should have done, I would have said they still should have stuck with the Warriors.
Yeah.
But we're talking about what they would have done. I think they would have thought they could just bury the Lakers just from pure offensive firepower.
Dude, there is no way you're picking. I guess you're Steph and LeBron, right? You're picking against 2 of the people that are on potentially the Mount Rushmore of basketball. Yep. 2 dudes that have changed the game like no other. Kind of like Kenny Stubblefield changes the game for Bluff City Media. What's up, man? Thank you for joining us. But that is really what. It's awesome. That's what we're kind of going. You're picking. That in this predicament, you're picking the wrong team. There's 0 chance you're going to pick the team and go, okay, I feel good about this. Like this is a choice that you're making, and you're throwing up while you make it. Does this make any better entertainment for playoff basketball? Because we saw the first round was unbelievable. The second round was pretty good.
Yeah.
It makes for really good basketball. Third round has been absolutely disastrous, especially for the NBA, who could potentially, if the Miami Heat keep winning this, they could be, we could have 9 days straight of no basketball, which would be a little crazy. Do you think that would have benefited? Because there's not much change there. Does that benefit you in the regular season because you're trying to have a better record? Or are you saying, as the Lakers, we do not care? We're going to get into the playoffs no matter what, and we don't care who we play. We'll be fine. Or does that make you try a little bit harder than the regular season?
It'll make some teams try harder. But I think your sort of ringer teams like the Lakers and the Heat, of this season, it's the same thing. Clearly, the Lakers, well, they didn't really have much of a decision because they were just behind the 8 ball. As soon as they got their current roster, they had to hit the gas. But if you're the Heat, they obviously didn't care during the regular season. It's a completely different team. So some of these teams that are laden with vets and stars and past champs, they won't change it up as much in the regular season, in my opinion. But some of the younger teams, I think, will, and some of the teams that don't feel as sure of themselves will, because they're going to try and get into those top 4 seeds to have a shot at picking who they get to play, right? And you really want to get into the top 3. But I'm not sure it changes much playoff value, to be honest. Other than you have the drama of some team picked another team to play. It's kind of, there's a lot that could come out of that, right? But other than that, I think the competition stays relatively similar.
Isn't that better, though? As a fan, you on live television, you have all the executives on a whatever, a Skype call, a Zoom call, or you have them in one place in New York, whatever, and you have them literally say, or maybe we go old school and we go like the draft style. You know how like they get in the draft, they're in the draft room, and all of a sudden they cut to the camera, and then they just kind of they write down a thing, and then all of a sudden the commissioner comes up. The Denver Nuggets will be playing the Minnesota Timberwolves, and then you go to the East, and the East picks their number 1. That would be really cool, because then you're pretty much like calling out, and then you can have the live camera footage on the players that are there at the arena just waiting to hear it. Like, that's old school style, and it's a lot of fun. Like, the only problem with all of this is because of the play-in, it really would delay everything, because where do you travel to, right?
Yeah.
So that would be the problem with all this. So we're poking holes in it, but we're also poking fun at the whole situation. There's a lot to figure out. There's a lot to think about, but I think it could be a lot of fun. Let's go over here real quick to the Eastern Conference, because Milwaukee obviously had to play, who was it? Miami?
Yep,
because they lost to Atlanta.
Miami.
So any chance that Milwaukee chooses?
God, no. Bro, they are playing the Hawks
there you go.
Destroying them.
So they're choosing Brooklyn, right? That's easy.
I would have taken Atlanta if I was the Bucks, honestly. But, I mean, you could take Brooklyn, I suppose. Because the Nets are like, they're kind of scrappy. They're just one of those teams that I would have been like, we should beat them, but I'm going to let someone else take care of them. Yeah. The Hawks is like, there's zero chance Milwaukee loses to the Hawks.
So in this, let's say this predicament, right? This situation, are you choosing Miami last out of Atlanta, Brooklyn, and New York? I know hindsight's 2020.
New York was the 5 seed, good, right? Yeah, they were the 5 seed.
5 seed, yeah.
Am I taking the Heat last? Probably, honestly.
Yeah, because
this has been a common theme with the Heat, right? That they, even when they lose, they suck to put out. It's been the theme. And so, yeah, I think the Heat are, sorry, Cavs. You've got the Heat.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the issue there. So, really, you're talking about the number 1 seed is legit, right? Mm-hmm. They have a fairly tough, like, this whole situation could be actually work as a negative to the number 1 seed. And that's another hole we can poke in. You're talking about the number 1 in Milwaukee, who doesn't want to choose Miami. You're talking about the number 1 who doesn't want to choose Denver, doesn't want to choose the Lakers, right? And most teams don't want to choose the Lakers because they're playing better. LeBron and it's Steph, right? So you're choosing against those two. At that point, the number 1, if you do win, the team that you didn't choose that was chosen last to play, usually by the 4 seed, they could upset the 4 seed and then play you, which obviously did happen in this whole scenario. In both conferences, that actually works out as a negative to both of you. And Denver took care of business. Obviously, we saw that last night. But now we're talking about possibly Miami actually going into the finals. Like, that's nuts, man. Nuts.
Probably, not possibly. Probably.
Yeah.
I think we're beyond all hope, ye who enter here, for poor Boston fans.
All right, I gotta try to get this right link to Shawn. He said it's not working, so give me 1 second. As
How
I
do you
type this
feel
in.
overall about the playoff stuff? Because when I look at it, I'm like I said, I see the benefit of it. I think it's more fun. I like it in general. Logistically, I don't know how you do that with the play-in unless you space things out more, which messes with the schedule a lot, right? Because there's a lot that goes into booking these arenas, who's going to be able to go where. They have a lot of moving parts. Logistically, it seems tough, but in general, I like the idea. I think it adds a little bit of fun.
Yeah. Yeah. Anything that you can add to make stuff fun and make these dudes care would be even better. But the playoffs have been so good though. I don't want to mess it up.
Dude, imagine if someone had picked the Heat and the Jimmy Butler you would have gotten. It's amazing to think about, dude. It is awesome. It's awesome. But yeah, man, we'll see if another broomstick gets broken out tonight. I kind of hope it is because I think NBA Twitter will explode. And I personally think that's fun just to observe. But
do you think there's any chance the Celtics can win 2 games in the series?
Yeah, for sure. If they get this one in Miami, I think they get the next one in Boston.
Okay. So are you pissed or, kind of annoyed if they win this game tonight and then go back to Boston and just get thumped? Just end it.
Would I be pissed? No.
Just annoyed.
It's more basketball. It's more fun.
That's what I want. I want more basketball. Obviously, but I just think it'd be funny.
Well, I do like just the idea of the Lakers and Celtics both just getting, bent over a barrel in the conference finals. Just a big FU to big markets everywhere. I love it. Absolutely love it. Tell you what we've seen from the Nuggets too is like next level stuff.
Yeah.
The Jokic tomahawk shot is the stuff of absolute nightmares. Like, imagine that's your team. You're making a run. You've got the game tight. You feel like you got some momentum. You play an unbelievable defensive possession. And then this big old frumpy mother effer just goes, tomahawks it, and just goes like this. It's like watching your unathletic sister try and shoot with you when you're a kid, except for it's pure, and he makes it like 75% of the time. It's infuriating.
I like it.
Are we getting Shawn?
Well, we got Shawn coming in. Let's go ahead and bring Shawn in now. You know what? I got to bring him in with some music. Oh, yeah. There he is. Just wait for it, Shawn. It only gets better. There he is. What's up, Shawn?
The hell is your problem? Number one, how are you going to sit there and not consult with me when it comes to my entrance music? By the way, it's God Smacks, I Stand Alone. And number two, it represents the number of links that you sent me. How are you going to send me the wrong link that at 8:14 send me the right link? Nathan, how are you?
Well, I will say that it was a Q that looked like an Nathan. It looked like an A. I was texting. Sorry.
He sent me the right link at 8:14 a.m. So I had to go dig it up in the back of my inbox. So we're equally inconvenienced in opposite ways. It's a Daniel experience.
I know.
All right.
He could just
so Shawn, you
great. Well, go ahead, Daniel. Sorry about that. I was speaking out loud again.
You're good. Shawn's one of the good guys over at Bluff City Media. He handles a lot of our Grizzlies stuff. And so we want to bring him on. He had a piece that I guess the title of it is Notable Characteristics of Conference Finalists. But a lot of it and kind of what's put out is the Grizzlies can learn a thing or two from NBA's Final Four, right? So you had the 4 teams. And that's pretty much what we were going to talk about today is the second segment and making sure we talk about kind of playoff lessons you can learn because these teams have so many lessons you can learn because you're talking about the Lakers who did not play well, but once they got into the playoffs, they just kind of emerged as one of the hardest and best teams, a team that we both picked last in the playoff reseeding. If you want to talk about Denver, who's been overlooked all year, has pretty much taken their lumps year after year, has injuries, and then all of a sudden now they are going into the NBA Finals. And then you look to the other side, Jimmy Butler, Miami has always been a threat, and the Boston Celtics. They have 2 of the best young guys, best young duos in the league, similar to Ja and Bane, and now they are potentially going to get swept. They could win a game or two, but their backs against the wall. So I thought your piece was really good. That kind of talked a lot about that. And that's what we want to share on that. So let's tell us a little bit about the piece, your article that you wrote, and then we'll get into some other stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it comes down to consistency, right? You've got to be consistently elite at some aspect of basketball. I mean, theoretically, multiple aspects of basketball on both on the offensive and defensive end. But the thing for it is that there are multiple ways in which teams can advance in the playoffs. That's the good news for Memphis, especially with the core that you can, compare to some of the cores that are, currently still playing, even ones that, made it to the second round. But you've got to be consistent. And that's one of the things that really is a defining characteristic. People want to talk about, for Miami and LA, what has allowed for them to be able to advance in the playoffs? Well, for one, Jimmy Butler, besides maybe Kawhi Leonard, is the best top 10 player of all time currently when it comes to the playoffs. And then, of course, the Lakers have LeBron James and Anthony Davis. But for both of those teams, it's defensive adjustments in the game. Through this round, both the Lakers and the Heat were the two best second-half defensive teams in the playoffs. And that's something that stood out. That is something that absolutely caused the Grizzlies problems. Now, for the Lakers against the Grizzlies, it was the entire game. But going against Golden State and, even at times against Denver, the Lakers were able to find ways for short spurts to be able to stop them at the very least. The Heat, though, are the prime example of the defense. Their fourth quarter defense has been stifling this entire playoffs. It worked against Milwaukee. It worked against New York. You want the best example of it, go to game 2 against the Celtics. But that is really what's helped out these teams, the 7 and 8 seed, Lakers and Heat, is being able to advance in the playoffs because of the fact that they were able to lock in on defensive adjustments and find ways to win.
Is that coaching, Shawn?
Oh, yes, absolutely. And what it comes down to is it comes down to coaching and also arguably having the best defender on the planet. And I say that as being a huge Jaren Jackson Jr. fan. I will be honest with you. Anthony Davis has shown that he has still a higher ceiling defensively right now than Jaren Jackson Jr. But you've got the best defensive anchor in the NBA, or at least one that's playing to that level for the Lakers and Anthony Davis. That's the key to their defensive adjustments. Darvin Ham's done a good job adjustments-wise as well. But let's not forget that where Jimmy Butler made his name, where Bam Adebayo is his strongest, are their defenses. And, of course, you've got Eric Spoelstra, the best coach in the NBA, helping them out. So that's what really stands out. You've got the best singular defensive anchor for the Lakers, and then you've got one of, maybe the 5 or 6 best anchors in the league with Bam Adebayo for the Heat. Yeah. Plus Jimmy Butler. You've got a bunch of role players who accept their role on defense to play within the team concept. That's what really helps out. So it's coaching, but it's also having really good defensive talent.
Yep. Nate, what do you have?
Well, I want to save a little bit of what I got until the end. So how long are you planning on staying with us, Shawn? I know you've got better things to talk to us.
I can stay for as long as you want, because it's not just defense that's standing out, as far as what's helping teams get through the playoffs. Defense is a big key for those teams that want to upset teams. If you can play good defense, that's your key to upsetting better teams. But at the end of the day, what stands out about this season as a whole, when we had more 30-point scores per game, more 40-point games, what have you, well, stands out more than anything is offensive consistency. And what has been the key for the Denver Nuggets? It's offensive consistency. A 122 offensive rating against a legitimately good defense in the Lakers. And it doesn't matter if you try to stop Jokic, he's going to be able to pass it out for the 3. They're able to make 3s. They're able to make 2s. But offensive consistency, we could talk about defense being the reason why the lower seeds advance. But at the end of the day, this year especially, the better teams are advancing because of their offensive consistency. And that's why I think that's what I think makes Denver the favorite in the finals against either Miami or Boston if they miraculously come back.
Yep. And Shawn, I know a big part of that article that you wrote was the moves on the margins and the people that were around the stars being part of that consistency. And I think one of the big things we've seen this postseason is not one guy being that consistent guy, right? It's one guy contributes on one night and the next guy contributes on another night. When it comes to Memphis specifically, What do you think they're missing as far as consistency goes in other guys? I mean, obviously we got shooting, but is there anything else that we're missing from the other guys?
Yeah, I mean, probably rebounding and some overall defense. We talk about Dylan Brooks, no longer being with the team. I think that that's the right move to make. But when you're losing Dylan Brooks, you're losing your second best defender for a team that truly needs to have defense as an aspect of what it can do. But for the Grizzlies, what stood out is outside of Xavier Tillman in game 2 against the Lakers, they had no outlier performances. Listen, you don't need the same role player to just explode, kind of like Rui has for the Lakers. You need for multiple guys to step up. That's what helps Miami out. One night it's Gabe Vincent. The other night it's Caleb Martin. The next night it's Max Strus, Austin Reeves, and Rui Hachimura. For the Lakers, you got Bruce Brown and Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. For Denver, those guys have been the big reason why those teams have been able to advance. The Grizzlies have those guys. But the problem is that the guys who we needed to do it this playoffs that were available didn't do it. That's Tyus. Santi did pretty decently, but Tyus didn't. Luke just didn't get the chance. Obviously, Dylan, just was not able to hit anything. But another big key is the guys that we were missing. Steven Adams and Brandon Clark. Tyus Jones and Brandon Clark were those outlier performances against Minnesota last year. We just didn't have it in us. So those outlier offensive performances are what really helped teams to advance. The Grizzlies, unfortunately, just did not have that in the bag in their series against the Lakers.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. One of the questions we had from one of the best probably nicknames or names or whatever this is, Volcano the Sweat. Volcano the Sweat. So he's asking the question exactly. Yeah. So he wants to know about Tyus. So Tyus has obviously been one of the biggest role players. He's been Mr. Consistency ever since he's pretty much arrived here. Tyus now he's been rumored to be on the trading block from fans, not obviously the front office, but from fans in general, just because of the smart fans I think that the Grizzlies have. In general, we understand that there's not much that you can trade off because there has to be some kind of money somewhere. Yeah. He has one of the biggest contracts that's movable. He obviously has a chance to be a starting point guard in the league. Ja Morant now is potentially going to be suspended. We don't know how long. We don't know when that's going to happen, when the news is going to come down. I would imagine it's before the draft, before the trade deadline. But let's say the news comes down and it's nothing just over the top for Ja, right? So we'll say less than 30. I think it's going to be closer to 20. We'll just say less than 30 games, less than half the season. What are you doing with Tyus Jones? Because obviously he could be a starting point guard and help you through the regular season. What are you doing with him?
Trading him in a heartbeat.
No matter what.
Yes. And the reason why that is just simply because of where the Grizzlies are right now. For the Grizzlies, Tyus Jones has proven to be an asset in the regular season. He was a big reason why we were able to beat Minnesota, but outside of that, he has struggled in the playoffs. The other thing that stands out is that when you look at the Grizzlies' best lineups, when you look at the lineups that could really help them play in the playoffs, and you're going to be playing your best players more often, it's Ja, it's Bane, it's Jaren. And then from there, where do you put Luke? Where do you put Steven Adams? Where do you put the DB upgrade? That's the reason why I say you trade Tyus, because he's going to be your most attractive asset because he actually is a positive value on his contract. That's an expiring. Unfortunately, he stands out as that because you have injury concerns to Brandon Clark and Steven Adams, who also are your other money matching, potential trade options. And you're not trading Luke because you need his shooting. But that's what stands out is that Tyus is the most expendable because of the injuries that you have to your other guys. The fact that you know that Luke Kennard and Steven Adams are going to amplify your core more than Tyus Jones will. So it just makes sense. The way that, friend of the show, friend of BCM Parker Fleming, he put it best, in my opinion. When it comes to Tyus, you use him in a trade to go get the Dylan Brooks upgrade. You then potentially use Dylan Brooks in a sign and trade to go get the Tyus replacement. Maybe an Alec Burks or somebody like that. But that's the reason why I think Tyus makes sense to trade. It's not because he's not a valuable player. He is an extremely valuable player. At times playing like a top 15 point guard, but that's why he's expendable for the Grizzlies. They need to use him to go get a guy that they can really use to make a difference in the playoffs.
The draft's coming up. Anything that you have on the draft? I have a couple more questions on the playoff stuff, and I know Nate is literally like sitting on his hands trying to wait. The draft stuff, we have a lot of good stuff that's coming up. We're gonna bring on Rafael Barlow, who will be on here on the 6th, June the 6th. So Rafael will be there. It's very much an upgrade over you, Shawn, even though you're here. Thank you.
High praise for Rafael, one of the best draft prospect minds out there.
No, and then Chip Williams, who's our draft insider here. He's very much an expert. He's very good. We had a chance that we talked on the show live. It was at the second, I guess it was a live event we had during the playoffs. The other time that we got beat really bad again. And so I had a chance that he's going to be coming on the 20th, which is a couple of days before the draft. So we'll have those two. But I want to get your opinion on the draft. All right. Give me 2 players you like, maybe that might be around the 25, anybody in general that you're kind of thinking like, hey, I want those guys. And then what do you think the Grizzlies do as a prediction?
I think they trade the pick, which I think that's definitely what they're going to do. I'm going to cheat here. I'm probably going to give you I'll give you 3 or 4 names. Dariq Whitehead, Derek Lively, Jet Howard. Those are 3 younger guys who I could see falling in the draft, whose upside I think is worth going after. If those guys are gone, then in my opinion, I would go with another wing, and I would go with Chris Murray, because I definitely think that he potentially is a good bet to see what we can do. And I know that we have a ton of young wing depth already that hasn't developed. But if you go get a Chris Murray, I think that he can help out in a lot of different ways. I think he can more comfortably play the 4 in some lineups and some of the other combo forwards that we have. And I think that he's another safer type combo forward that you can bring into the equation if you potentially part ways with a Zaire or someone like that in a trade. So those are some different names. Now, I know a lot of people like, I believe his name is Belial Koulibaly. He is, I believe, the teammate of Wemby in France. I know that he's someone that is rising up draft boards, but I think he eventually goes in the top 20. I haven't really dived into the international prospects as of yet. The names you mentioned, other names in Grizz Nation, are much better than me as far as that goes. But if that guy's available, I think he becomes very intriguing. But Dariq Whitehead, Derek Lively, Jet Howard, and Chris Murray probably stand out as the guys that really make sense to me.
Shawn, where did those first 2 guys go to school at? I'm trying to jog my memory. Like, I feel like they're a blue blood, might be blue. I don't remember. Do you know where they went to school at?
Okay, so they went to Duke. What does that matter?
How about them Dukies, baby? How about them? Let's go get another Dookie. Let's bring them in. We have Tyus. We'll keep Tyus then. We'll keep Luke.
I have a quick question.
Get Dariq Whitehead.
Who's the Duke fan?
Me.
Yeah. How'd your season end?
We lost like all the other teams.
Who'd you lose to?
We don't remember.
Who'd you lose to?
We don't remember.
You want to go to your next question?
I forget the games behind me.
I got you.
I only look ahead, Shawn.
Oh, so close.
Thank you for that.
So close to getting involved.
What are you? Hey, Al Horford, you ready for your question there, Broomstick?
I don't know why I'd be called Al Horford. He's got very nice eyelashes.
You don't remember the T last game. You gave the T?
No, that was for a school that you can't seem to remember.
I know.
Daniel,
It's
but
still
it's okay.
the T. But
So, Shawn.
Hey, Daniel, the Vols kicked your Blue Devils' ass.
I'm married to one. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot.
At least you
heard
choose
me
one.
in the background. Shawn, get back on track since Daniel derailed us like he does. I wanted to ask a couple of questions to do with the free agency trade scenarios that could come up for Memphis. One of which being the Dylan Brooks possible upgrade. Dylan Brick, it was a bit of a Freudian slip right there. But with Dylan, I think there's a pretty easy consensus that there's 2 guys that are the best for the job: Mikal Bridges, OG Anunoby.
Mm-hmm.
I've basically given up hope of getting Mikal Bridges at this point, because even if the Nets would take the Grizzlies offer, I think there are going to be better offers out there, and the Grizzlies can't compete.
100%.
With OG Anunoby, I think it's realistic they can get them. I know you and I, so we agree on that. My disagreement, or my wondering that I have with you on that, is can the Grizzlies get him, pay him, and afford to get the veteran depth that I think they also need, and some of those other pieces off the bench? That's where my concern comes in. Do you think that my concerns there are unwarranted and they could do that? Or is that something that could become an issue for the Grizzlies if they do manage to land him?
Well, so let's see the pieces that they would potentially use to go get OG. I mean, you're using Tyus, who can make sense, going to Toronto, especially if Fred VanVleet goes elsewhere. Maybe he goes elsewhere in a 3-team deal. You're losing Tyus and you're losing a combo forward. So, and then it's draft picks. So OG immediately takes the combo forwards position. Well, then at that point, you've still got a Dylan sign and trade, and you've still got the MLE that you could, mid-level exception, that you potentially could go out and get that veteran depth. Now, I'm thinking that the way that we're looking at this is that we know that we're likely going to need 3 positions filled, right? We're definitely going to try to go get the Dylan upgrade. If Tyus is the obvious candidate to go get that, we're going to need some veteran guard depth, and we're probably going to need to have a bit more certainty on the front line. I don't necessarily know if we go out and sign, on an MLE, frontline guy for another $12 million when we're already paying Steven and Brandon Clark. But that's the thing that stands out, is that I'm not necessarily that concerned, because I don't really think that the Grizzlies are going to trade 2 of, the Roddy Aldana, Zaire, or Laravia group. I think it's going to be Tyus. I think it's going to be one of them. And then I think it's going to be, probably 3 draft picks. And, in my opinion, if it's heavily 23, 24, I'd do that in a heartbeat. I would trade the Golden State pick for OG. Yep. But yeah, I think that with the Dylan Brooks sign and trade and the MLE still available, that will help you get your veteran depth.
Got it. And I trust you way more on that, because I've looked at the money a little bit, but I'm not nearly as experienced in it as you are. I know we talked about it a little bit personally, but I want to get a little bit more clarification from you on the show, because obviously we love OG Anunoby on this team. He fit perfectly. It's just a matter of, if you do that, can you fill the other gaps?
Yeah, exactly.
With those other gaps,
go ahead.
This is the one that I was talking to you about earlier. I didn't tell you what it was. I have a tradition of falling in love with one guy every offseason. I'm like, this guy needs to be a Grizzly.
It was me last offseason.
It has nothing to do with you whatsoever. Last year was Bojan Bogdanovic. I love me some Bojangles. I still love him, but my heart is now set on one Bobby Portis. Crazy Eye Bobby is just the dream guy for me right now. And I think he would fit really well on this team. I know that there's a lot of concern about why would you add another big, but I think there's one beloved Grizzly whose salary matches up to within $100,000 that we could send over for him, and Brandon Clark. What are your thoughts on one Bobby on this team, to the trade?
Oh, absolutely. I don't think Milwaukee does it. And the reason why I don't think Milwaukee does it is because I don't think that Milwaukee, with some of the stuff that's around, their situation, as far as their future earnings go, all that different stuff, I don't think that they're going to take on the extra years with Brandon Clark with his injury concerns, especially the type of injury that it was. But let's make no mistake about it. Bobby Portis would be an excellent addition to this team, because he's exactly what Taylor Jenkins would want: an outstanding reserve 3-point shooter who can play the front line. Now, he's got, some stuff about him that definitely brings an edge, like, Dylan Brooks did, but I think, Bobby Portis is probably a bit smarter, at times when it comes to his overall approach. He'd be an outstanding fit for the Grizzlies. I just don't know if it makes sense for Memphis to prioritize that type of trade. For instance, I know that somebody had talked about a Tyus for Bobby Portis, and it matches up money-wise. Sure, I'd probably prefer a DFS Dorian Finney-Smith over a Bobby Portis, because I think Finney-Smith can do a bit better job out there on the perimeter. But, we could break it down all day long. He would be an excellent addition. I just don't think that it really is going to make sense based off what the Grizzlies are trying to do. Now, if the Grizzlies figure something out, perhaps they prefer, if Milwaukee at that point maybe were to prefer a better perimeter defender than what Portis can offer, could it make sense in the Dylan trade? However that works out, possibly. But now I think it's a great target. I just don't know if it's as sensible as others this offseason.
Gotcha. That's my worry. But I'm going to dream of it anyways until it doesn't happen. So, and at least now you're on my side.
I honestly, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I honestly
do.
Bobby Portis was a free agent. I think that he was last year. Anywho, he signed for around $11 million per year. He absolutely would be a top target for our MLE if he was available this summer. So I think it's a great trade target. Just don't know if it's that sensible.
Yeah, it's okay. I reserve hope.
All right. 2 questions. One's an easy one. two teams that should be in the finals. We're just going to go ahead and pencil Miami in just because it'd be very hard for them to come back. Miami and Denver. Who's winning the NBA finals?
Denver in 6, maybe 5.
Wow, I like it. All right, last question. Black Lives Matter, who's a friend of the show. He got here a little bit late, but you know what? He's here, and he has a question. Do you think they go, even though he said Dante Chenzo, but, DiVincenzo, it's close enough. The full MLE, there's a connection there with Coach Jenkins. What is that connection, if you know what it is? And then is there any way that they would go full MLE? But he is I think he's a team option for the Warriors, I believe. At $6 million.
Yeah. Well,
it's a player option.
Yeah, it's a player option. He signed the deal to where he could do it. And I can't think of what for those listening to the show, if Black Lives Matter, is that Grace Company man on Twitter? If
yes.
It is, says, shout out to him. Great guy. Stirs the pot a little bit. I like that about him. But no, the thing that I'll say about Dante DiVincenzo is, the connection that he's referring to is, the fact, of course, that Taylor Jenkins was in Milwaukee for 1 year, and DiVincenzo was there, with Mike Budenholzer. I think their years lined up. So we know the player, and I think that he would have been an incredible, addition last year. Yes, I definitely think that he, I talked about taking Dylan and potentially going to get Alec Burks, a guy who could play point, a guy who could shoot the three, a guy that knows how to come off the bench and make an impact. That's the type of player that I would like to get. If we were to trade Tyus, I think that Dante DiVincenzo is that type of player. Do I necessarily know if the Grizzlies want to commit that type of money to a player in some molds? Is kind of like a DeAnthony Melton when they traded DeAnthony Melton off already? Don't necessarily know, but I could see it make sense. Let's put it this way. I could see it. I put DiVincenzo basically kind of in the same realm that I do Bobby Portis, a very sensible type of target to go get, someone that I think definitely would improve the roster, but I think it's only in the right scenario that it makes sense. If they feel other needs in other ways, then yes, but I think that he would be a great target to go get. The guy that I would love to get also is Josh Hart, but he's going to sign too big of a contract in New York. But I think that Dante DiVincenzo, I always say his last name wrong. I'm horrible with names, but I think that he is a sensible target. I just think that other things kind of need to fall in place first for the Grizzlies to go out and get him.
Yep. No, I agree. I think he's a great player that you want to bring in at 6, 8, 10 million, maybe at max. We're talking about 12-ish million. You're talking about a lot to a player that can do a lot for you, but he's more of a regular season player, and he's very much a spot player when it comes into the playoffs, where he could be exposed in some areas, but obviously you're talking about 5 spots on the court. Like, he can be one of your 7 potentially, but you have a lot of good young talent that is coming up. And when the Grizzlies, if they keep growing this talent, I think that you want to go with those. I want to go with Roddy in 2 years over a player like Dante DiVincenzo. So that's the issue is how long are you going to just let this go on? Like 1 year, great. Yes, sign me up. But 2, 3 years, I would rather have Roddy over him.
True. But if you were to sit there, but I mean, you've got 3 more years of Roddy on that rookie contract, right? So if you sign him to a 1 year, then player option, team option, 2-year player option, team option, I will put it this way. Besides Luke, I think that DiVincenzo would automatically, with Brandon Clark kind of on the mend, I think that DiVincenzo would automatically be that guy who could be an outlier type performance.
Okay.
I do have faith in the DiVincenzo as being a pure reserve who can have an outlier type performance like a Gabe Vincent than I do others currently on the Grizzlies roster. So I think I see your point. He probably does have a bit more regular season value, but I do think that he could be a part of a playoff rotation. So him and Bobby Portis, hey, they both have shown that they can make a difference in championship cultures. So I definitely think that they are 2 targets that could make sense potentially this offseason.
Yeah.
People,
go ahead.
I do want to ask one more thing on White Dante. How much money you think he ends up getting? Because I can't imagine he would take up the full mid-level, right? That's a huge pay jump for him. I mean, he signed for $6 million a year, and he kind of knew what player he was out of Milwaukee. You think he jumps all the way up to 12?
I don't necessarily know if he gets to 12. Maybe, I mean, you've got players that are making, $8 to $10 million that, probably are not as consistent as him or not, doesn't have as high a ceiling as him. But I could see that 8 to 12 range. I could see a multi-year deal, 216, maybe 325. Again, I'm not the best when it comes to the contracts, but seeing him, I think that he definitely could get in the double figures this year, especially on a short-term contract. So, may happen, may not. A lot of times when you compare guys that already have contracts to guys looking for contracts, a lot of times if they're not, just significant or elite, those guys are going to have to go with smaller contracts. So I think 8 to 10 million could make sense. He's definitely earned a raise, I feel, showing he's healthy. And I think that he did some good things for Golden State. So I think multiple years at 8 to 10 million can make sense for him.
Got it. DiVincenzo was very valuable for the Warriors this year, especially in the playoffs. He played very well for them, and somebody who is invaluable for Bluff City Media is Shawn Coleman. So thank you for coming on the show. I appreciate that. It was a late notice, but I saw your article and I was like, I have to get you on to ask you. And I always love having you on, even though we might throw jabs every now and then.
Nate, it's been a pleasure.
You as well. Thank you for the brief reprieve.
Hey, y'all have a great one, guys. Enjoy the show. And like I say, hey, Daniel, one more time. Who beat the Blue Devils?
I don't remember. Get out of here. Bye, Shawn.
Go Balls. Bye-bye.
All right, that was Shawn Coleman, everybody. I want to go ahead and hit real quick on our presenting sponsor, and that is Zach Jaworski, State Farm. If you have any needs at all, whether it is home, auto, whatever you're looking for with your insurance, we have to have it. Go ahead and find our guys. They are the Dante DiVincenzo of the insurance business. You can count on them. 901-794-3691. That is Zach Jaworski, State Farm. 901-794-3691. All right, let's go ahead and get into what we wanted to spend a little bit of the end of the show on. And this is the social media shenanigans. This is your segment. I want you to hit on that, but I do have one question in the comment section. It's from Black Lives Matter. Slim Jr. Did you see it?
Yeah, he ain't been eating at Slim Chickens, has he? Dude looks good. It looks like he lost like a significant amount of weight. Maybe it's like the Zion photo where it's like the perfect angle. It hadn't been that long since the playoffs when we saw him and he wasn't looking that slim. But maybe he just hit the treadmill like crazy. Yeah, he looks good, man.
Man went to Jenny Craig.
Oh God. Also, can we just like that exit by Shawn? How perfect was that? Bye-bye as he gets launched off the screen. That was awesome. It was perfect. Almost as perfect as Blanton's is for this show, where taste meets affordability. Boom, 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 boom. Had to sneak it in. All right.
What you got for social media shenanigans?
So I don't have anything too crazy specific. The only thing I'm going to hit on that I don't like from social media is the Jaylen Brown trade talk. Like people still throwing Desmond Bane into trade discussions after this Jaylen Brown performance. The Bane thing always, I didn't think made much sense because Jaylen Brown, his peak performance is higher than Desmond Bane. But as far as the fit on the team, Desmond Bane fits better for what fits better around Jaren and Ja. Like he's a 3-point specialist who now has a whole mid-range and downhill game. I never thought it made sense because you're giving up too good of a fit for not that big of an upgrade. But it also just you can build around Bane better, etc. I never liked it. But the people who are still wanting that, I don't understand it. I don't understand it a little bit. And listen, we love Joe Molinax over here. Dude is awesome. He's way smarter than you and me. We both concede that. I don't know what he's saying Jaylen Brown could be better than John Morant. I didn't understand that even a little bit. So, and Joe, I understood. I know Joe's a faithful listener of the show, I'm sure. Maybe not. I wouldn't blame him if he wouldn't. But I got what he was saying a little bit, but in my mind, like Ja is a superstar who has to have an off performance to not be a superstar. Jaylen Brown is an all-star who has to have an awesome performance to be a superstar. right? It's like they both, when they're peak of power, Jaylen Brown, I mean, he's awesome, right? But even when you see John, he's making all his shots. Look at that game 3 against the Lakers, dude.
Yeah.
Like, it's next level, and Jaylen Brown can, but I expect it from Ja more. So, anyways, all that to say, just the Jaylen Brown stuff, I'm like, bro, I get it. I know why he's enticing. Hard pass. That's the only thing I didn't like. Now here's the things I like. One, all of America hating listening to the Van Gundys as much as I hate to listen to them. Incredible development. Everyone hates listening to the Van Gundys now, which, welcome to the party. I don't know why people are like, yeah, Van Gundy, great analysis. I'm like, what are you talking about? They hate the NBA.
Right.
They hated it for years. This is not new. And seeing people like talk about how miserable it is, hearing them talk about it is wonderful. It's just so gratifying to me. Like I said, it's all toxic and petty, but it's a positive for me that everyone despises it the way I despise it. I love it.
Who just said that they just saw Jokic for the first time? Was that Doris Burke?
I think it was Lisa Salters.
Lisa.
But also Mark Jackson. And they're like, wow, this guy's really good. I'm like, no, dude. Dude, NBA.
2-time MVP, guys.
It's
like,
crazy. God. Which brings me to the other thing that I really love, which is all of NBA Twitter just rallying behind JJ Redick to despise ESPN hot take analysis. I love it. I love it because it's like the discourse around most sports, but especially basketball, has become this hot takeism. Like it's freaking Stephen A. yelling at Mad Dog, who Mad Dog is like possibly the worst hire of any hires in the media space. Like I listened to him once and have not listened since. Yeah. It took 30 seconds for me to be like, no. And then he pops up on my screen and I'm like, oh, okay. No.
He's from New York, right? And so he has the New York fan base, and it's probably a little bit of Stephen A. Like, hey, let's get him in here.
Except for he's an idiot.
And he is an idiot. And he's like,
what are we talking about?
It's so bad. It's so bad.
He clearly doesn't know what he's talking about. Like, and he just starts saying stuff to say it. It's like, honestly, if you took my grandpa that could barely fit into his camo coveralls and you put him on a sports show and just said he'd take you like, oh yeah, I don't know. It's like a New York accent to a redneck accent. It's the same take. That's Mad Dog. But all these other shows, it's like clear these guys don't actually watch your team. If you pay attention to your team, they don't pay attention. It's clear. And JJ Redick coming on and saying, what are you talking about? And owning people, which has now led to Zach Lowe coming on. And now Zach Lowe's inspired. And then you got Wendy, who, if you go to ESPN, basically Zach Lowe, McMahon, Wendy, those are the guys I've gone to. Bontemps.
I like Legs.
I was about to say Legler a little bit. Oh, I'm missing one. He's on Hoop Collective quite a bit. But there's a few guys. The mainstream guy, it's just terrible. Yeah. It's brutal. Everyone's Skip and Shannon. And so to see all of NBA Twitter be like, nah, ESPN sucks.
Yeah. A quick question. I'm going to add something to your list. So here recently, Pat McAfee and the boys were actually now transitioning over to ESPN. So you're going to have Keyshawn, J. Will, and Max, and then you're going to have Get Up, which should be obviously with Greeny and his crew. And then from there, you should have Pat McAfee. So pretty much taking you through the afternoon, I believe. They're going to be more on ESPN. What's your thought on that? Do you like Pat McAfee? Do you think he's good fit for ESPN?
I think Pat McAfee's a good fit anywhere he goes.
Okay.
But the thing about Pat McAfee is, and he would not argue this, I believe, he's an entertainer.
That's
the dude's on WWE Raw, right? He's wrestling. He's an entertainer. So I love that. But I also never question when he's an entertainer. But you and I saw it, shout out to Dane Moore tweeted this out earlier. When we watched ESPN growing up, even when I was in college, you were watching guys analyze the games. You were getting true breakdown of what was happening. And now it's like, it's just hot takeism. The breakdowns you get are from like Kendrick Perkins, who's pouring honey on dudes, and then being like, now Desmond Baines. It's like it's not real analysis, right? And you got former players on there. Richard Jefferson, I think, can do a really good job. As much as I know Memphis fans can be annoyed by him, I think he can do a really good job of breaking down the game. But you don't have that anymore, and I want that on ESPN, right? I don't check ESPN for analysis anymore. It's for just breaking news, but I don't want any breakdowns of it unless you get a Windhorst, Zach Lowe, those kinds of guys. So trying to bring that to mainstream would be awesome.
Yeah. So I do like that. On the Pat stuff, I don't listen as much anymore just because it ends up being a little bit of white noise because he's on every single day and he's on for multiple hours, right? So you can't really, unless you're just a person that drives a lot or has a lot of free time where you can listen to that kind of stuff. It honestly, it just kind of blends all in and you kind of have to pick and choose. And a lot of it is me just seeing the highlights. So that's what I like, the highlights, the social media part of it, where you can see, and then you go to that part and you find out what you like. But what he's done is obviously he is more football, right? He's less of NBA basketball, which is fine. But he does have people that break down the game. I cannot remember who the gentleman who he has on. He also brings on other people, and they actually work through the plays. Pat is a very smart football player. He also has AJ Hawk. And so I think they do a good job of breaking down NFL. And I think they've been more on that. They are completely entertainment, but they do break down some part of the game. I just don't know if it would ever get to the point where he would actually bring in more people. I know he has in the past, but on a regular basis and break the game down a little bit more. Like if just bring on JJ Redick. I guarantee JJ Redick comes on the show at one point, but the problem is I believe they're still going to film it out of the Thunderdome in Indianapolis. So there's no way that JJ is going to slide down to Studio Q, whatever the letters are. But no, he'd have to go to Indy.
It's all right. They can do that remote. But it's the same thing. They're entertainment, framing themselves as entertainment. And they have some analysis in there, and it is good when they do it. But it's like you watch that show to be entertained. Right. So I have no problem with that. My problem is when we watch things that are trying to claim themselves as in-depth analysis, and
they're not.
It's not even close.
No, I agree. All right, what else you got for this? We got about 2 or 3 more minutes, and then we're gonna close the show. So, what you got?
Nothing much, man. It was fun having Shawn on. I've been looking forward to being able to get him on for a while and talking, and I still have hopes for Bobby Portis. I'm just gonna manifest him being disgruntled and ready to leave Wisconsin because it's too cold and F that noise. And he can come down to Memphis where it's hot and we got soul food and it's just an amazing place to be. The food's great no matter what it is. I desperately miss it living in Salt Lake, but we don't have to get into that. There's reasons for Bobby Portis to come to Memphis, and I'm going to hold on to them until he doesn't. Just like with Bojangles last year, ignore the fact it didn't work out for us.
No, I agree. Shawn was great. I was just looking through the stuff I said this morning, or I guess early in the show. I was looking through this morning, and I just texted him like, "Hey, could you just hop on?" He was very late notice, but he was obviously kind enough to. He would have stayed on here the whole entire show if we'd asked him. But I like having people come in and then people leaving. That way, it doesn't hold them up all day, but it also allows us to kind of get a palate cleanser, have them a little bit, and then let them leave. And so they're not here the whole time, but also allow us to kind of do our show. But like I said, we're going to have Rafael Barlow. We're going to have a little bit more on next week. I believe I have set planned for, we're going to talk more about the actual NBA finals because it starts on the 1st, and our next show should be close to the start of that. So you're looking at a couple days ahead of time. So maybe we'll look at bringing somebody else on to talk about the NBA finals. But that's kind of what I have planned as of right now. And then from there, we're going to be all draft. So as soon as we get through our next week, it's going to be the next 3 weeks are all about the draft. So if you're curious, like I said, the 6th is Rafael Barlow. The 20th, which is 2 days prior to the actual draft on the 22nd, we'll have Chip Williams. We're going to talk all about the Grizzlies. Okay. So if you have draft questions, if you want to be on here and ask Rafael or even Chip some questions, feel free to hit in the comment section. Join us live every Tuesday at 8:00. If you have, any chance, go push the subscribe button. We are now over the 1,000, the mark of the subscribers to our YouTube page. So that's big. That hit, I think it was last week at some point. So now we're over the 1,000 mark. So we're on to 10,000. Okay, I'm kidding. But yes, we're upward and onward. But I don't have anything else. I think it's been a great show. I think it's, obviously it's enlightening. We want to make sure that we have new people on here every now and then. to make sure that we kind of share a little bit of our show, but also I think it's important to kind of, work around with different people and talk about different things. So that's all we have. If you don't have anything, we're going to go ahead and get out of here. So you good?
Gucci.
Let's get out. Be nice and tell your friends.